Third fantasy basketball recap. So this is where I go through all the box scores and tell you my opinions and obviously the stats of the players. And the first game I'm going to start off with here is the Boston Celtics and the Detroit Pistons. And the Pistons take a tough loss at home here to the Celtics, 122 to 120 in a close one. So the Celtics improved to 4-3, and the Pistons fall to 1-5 now with the worst record in the Eastern Conference. And now we'll go to the box score. And for Boston, here we go. Tristan Thompson, he started at powered forward in this one. 26 minutes of play, 12 points, 11 boards, and assists. 5 for 10 from the field, 2 for 4 from the line. So Tristan Thompson, this is similar stat lines you're going to expect from him. Most of the season here is Thompson, 8 to 10 points a game, 10 to 12 boards a game. And he really could get the job done and play a decent role for this Boston Celtic team. And I think it was an underrated signing here to get Tristan Thompson for the Celtics. He's going to help underneath. He's a garbage man with a lot of putbacks, and obviously he's not going to be a huge scorer, and he don't really have a jump shot, but I think he's decent for fantasy. He's going to help in rebounds, field goals on most nights, and blocking shots. Jason Tatum, a great game here. He fell 2 rebounds shy of a triple-double, 24 points, 8 boards, 12 dimes in 36 minutes of work for Jason Tatum. He was a first-round to early second-round pick for a reason, and this season he's playing where he left off last year. He went 10 for 22 from the field in this one, 4 for 8 from 3, and Tatum, the only knock on him is the turnovers and improving on his three-point shooting, but on this night, he improved going 50% from 3 and added 4 of them. Marcus Smart, another start at point guard for Smart, 17 points, 3 boards, 10 assists in 34 minutes of play, so a nice double-double for Smart. He does a little bit of everything. The problem with him over the years is his poor three-point shooting and field goal percentage, but in this one he actually shot 50%, 5 for 10 from the field, 6 for 6 from the line, and 1 for 5 from 3. So Smart, he's going to play major minutes, especially with Kemba Walker with no timetable for his return. And I think Smart, he can help fantasy teams. And if he keeps this play going, he's going to play this all the time and be the sixth man, obviously, still for this Celtic team. Jalen Brown, another monster game for him, 31 points, 1 rebound, 3 assists, and Brown, he's been on a tear in terms of scoring the basketball, and a whopping 13 for 16 from the field, 5 for 8 from 3, and Jalen Brown, he's taking that next step, I believe, here for this Celtic team, and this guy's on the verge of superstardom, and him and Tatum, a great tandem to build this roster around, and these two guys, they're putting up points, and have led to the Celtics to the Eastern Conference Finals now a few times in the last few years. Daniel Theis, he's a player I recommended to drop this week, and I'm still going to stick by it, even with the 15 points, 4 rebounds, and an assist. He just didn't do much this season so far. This game, I think, is fluky in my opinion, with the 7 for 8 from the field, and he even added a 3. Because Theis, he's not going to really score 15 points. He'll score probably 7-8 a night with 4 or 5 boards, and I don't think that gets him a fantasy spot on most rosters. Pritchard, he's not really on the radar. He did play 27 minutes in this one. 5 points, 4 boards, 4 assists. O'Leary, he had a pretty decent game with 11 points in 22 minutes. He's not on the radar, but Robert Williams is, and he was a center I recommended to add on the waiver wire this week. And he had a good game, 5 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists in 17 minutes, 2 for 4 from the field, 1 for 2 from the field. So Robert Williams, he's blocking shots as well. He's getting a couple steals, and this guy, he's going to play a major part, I believe, in this Boston offense and on this roster as the weeks and season goes on. So Williams, he's a guy recommended to add. You don't got to rush out there and add him now, but I would keep an eye on him. Jeff Teague, 15 minutes, 2 points, 3 boards, 2 assists. And once again this week, he was on my drop video for point guard. So check out the new videos I released with the waiver wire and the guys to drop here heading into week 3 of the season. Now to the Pistons side of things. In this one, Blake Griffin returned with a mediocre game, 29 minutes, 13 points, 3 rebounds, 4 assists, 4 of 14 from the field, 2 for 4 from the line. And Blake Griffin, remember when he came into the league and he didn't want to attempt threes or hit them, But in this game, once again, he takes 10 3-point shots. He only hit 3 of them. But this season, Griffin, he's hit a decent amount of threes in the limited amount of games he played. So Griffin, his problem's been injury. He had a concussion. He came off of it and played in this game. And now the Pistons play tonight as well. So I don't know if Griffin's going to still play any back-to-backs at all. But he's a guy you still keep on your roster and hope he improves and gets healthy as the season goes on. Jeremy Grant, a decent game in this one. Once again, Grant, he's been a fantasy stud so far. And a good game here, like I said, 22 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, 8 for 16 from the field, 4 for 4 from the line, 2 for 6 from 3. So Jeremiah Grant, I thought he'd be a bust with this Piston team since he left Denver and came here, but he fits well here. He's one of the most reliable guys on this roster in terms of injury, not getting injured, and playing time. And right now, he's playing the 35, 40 minutes a game. He's starting every game, and he's living up to the contract so far that the Pistons gave him. Killian Hayes, I recommended to drop him last week, and in this one, he didn't do anything again. 5 points, 1 rebound, 4 assists, and only 5 field goal attempts. 2 for 5 from the field. So Hayes, he's not doing anything great in one category. And right now, he's a player that should be dropped. Maybe as the season goes on, this rookie will break in to the NBA game and know what he has to do to be more productive. But right now, he's just not getting the job done for fantasy owners, and he's not worth the roster spot. Josh Jackson, he's been playing well with this Piston team. Another off-season signing here. And he had 13 points, 1 rebound, and 2 assists, but he got banged up in this one. So I doubt he plays tonight. He's a player I recommended to add on waivers as well at the guard position. So check that out. 5 for 10 from the field, 2 for 4 from 3. And I feel like Jackson's finally getting an opportunity to play a decent role on a mediocre team to poor team. And this is what you want to see, guys, when they leave their ex-teams to come here and go on a team where they're going to get playing time, and Jackson's showing value. So he's a player I would still try to add if I got no one on my roster that's doing much and I could drop a few guys. So Jackson, even with the injury, he's worth an add, and he's still going to play minutes here. Mason Plumlee, another new addition to this Piston team, and another great game for him. 13 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, 7 for 8 from the line, 3 for 4 from the field. So Plumlee, he's giving you a little bit of everything. He's almost a walking double-double now with this Piston team. And a lot of people, including me, were questioning why they gave him this contract. But as a starter and a guy playing major minutes for this Piston team, he's showing what he could do in an expanded role, Plumlee. And he's a guy that should be owned in all fantasy leagues. Derrick Rose, pretty good game here off the bench. He's the 6th man for Detroit, but soon I think I could see him taking that starting job over Killian Hayes. Rose just more productive. 13 points, a rebound, 8 dimes in 23 minutes here. 4 for 12 from the field, and he added a 3 as well. D. Rose, throughout his career, health has been the issue. But when he plays, he still could score the basketball. He could get his teammates involved, and that's what he did in this ball game. And he's a guy that should be owned in most fantasy leagues and be played on most rosters. Sonny Bay here, he had a big game the other night, but in this one with Blake Griffin back in the lineup, he didn't do much in 19 minutes of play. 6 points, 3 boards, 2 assists. He did add 2 threes, but he was 2 for 6 from the field, and right now he should be dropped off your team if you had him, but he's not owned in many leagues or just kept on the waiver wire now unless another injury or something pops up where he's going to get more playing time. Darrell Wright, he didn't do much. He was a recommended pickup in week 2, but here in week 3, he might be a recommended drop. 18 minutes, 4 points, 3 boards, 3 assists. I would wait on Wright another couple games here and there, but if he don't get anything going this week, he's definitely a guy that shouldn't be rostered in fantasy leagues. Stewart and Dumabaya, they don't have value. Mikhail either doesn't, but in this game, he went off 3 for 6 from 3, 15 points in 14 minutes with 2 boards and an assist. But I don't think he's garnered a roster spot yet in fantasy basketball, even with the good game in this one. So that was the Boston and Detroit box score and fantasy recap. Now on to the Lakers and the Memphis Grizzlies. And the Lakers here win this one, 108-94, with a huge victory over the Grizzlies. The Grizzlies, we know, they got injuries. They're probably not going to contend for a playoff spot this season. And the Lakers, they're looking to get back to the finals and repeat this year. So now to the Lakers box score. Anthony Davis, once again, a mediocre game for him. This year, he's only had 1 or 2 monster games where you expected him to get 20, 30 points a game. But in this one, 17 points, 9 boards and assists, 6 for 15 from the field, and 0 for 2 from 3. So Anthony Davis, he's just not putting up those huge numbers like we saw last season and especially in the playoffs. And right now, he was a guy that was drafted anywhere from 1st to 4th in overall in your fantasy drafts, and he's not really putting up those type of numbers. So he's a play I would buy low. Maybe there's an injury, or maybe he's fatigued. I just don't know what the deal is with Davis, but he's only had 1 huge game over 30 points this year in fantasy. LeBron James, he just keeps going, man. 22 points, 13 boards, 8 assists in 32 minutes. Almost a triple-double here for LeBron once again. And LeBron, I thought coming into the year, he would sit out a lot of games early in the season, but that hasn't been the case. And he's played in all 7 so far for LA, and he's still putting up elite numbers. Here is LeBron, and he also added 3 threes in this one. Dennis Schroeder, good game here, 31 minutes, 11 points, a rebound, 5 assists. Just his shooting percentage was off in this one, 4 for 13. But I'm not worried about Schroeder. He's playing 30, 35 minutes a game. He's starting for the Lakers, and he's a big upgrade over a couple guys they had last season in that starting lineup, like Danny Green and JaVale McGee. Kyle Kuzma, they made the change here. They started him over Caldwell Pope. And Kuzma, he's out there in about 45-50% of fantasy leagues available. And he played 30 minutes. He had 11 points, 3 rebounds and assists, 4 for 9 from the field. Then he added 3 for 7 at 3. Kuzma, a lot of people just don't like him for whatever reason. Laker fans can't stand him. They had a petition that this guy don't deserve his championship ring, but I think Kuzma's a good young player. The Lakers obviously believe in him a little, that they gave him a contract extension, I believe, which was 3 years, $40 million. Kuzma now starting at shooting guard. He's going to have fantasy value. Last year, he hit big shots in the playoffs, in my opinion, believe it or not. And once again, in this team, the attention's going to go to Davis and James. And Kuzma's going to roam open, I believe, at the wing. He's just got to improve his three-point shooting and some of his decision-making. But he definitely holds fantasy value. Marcus All, decent game for him, but he's still not worth the fantasy roster spot, in my opinion. 7 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 of 6 from the field, 3 for 4 from the line. And he went 0 for 3 from 3. So Marcus All, he's going to start, but he's not playing huge minutes, 20, 25 a game, and he's not just doing much of anything in one category to keep him on a roster at this time in fantasy. Wes Matthews, another pop-out game in this one, 27 minutes of play, 14 points, a board and assist, 4 for 6 from 3. And Matthews, for fantasy, he's pretty much a one-trick pony, where if he's not scoring the basketball, he's not going to do too much. So I don't still think he has much fantasy value. He's not going to play much, in my opinion. Tonight he did play 27 minutes, but I don't think it'll be worth much here for Wes Matthews to own him on your roster unless another injury or something happens here. But tonight he did play a lot because Caldwell Pope was out with the ankle sprain. But once Pope comes back, Matthews definitely has no value at all. Horton Tucker, another decent game for him. 7 points, 6 boards, 2 assists, 3 for 9 from the field, 1 for 4 from 3. We've heard a lot of reports about this kid, that he's going to have a big year and going to break out. And he was impressive in the Lakers training camp. And he showed up with some decent games so far in the early going in the NBA season. But Horton Tucker, he's not going to play many minutes. His numbers aren't going to be consistent. He's only 20 years old, but in Dynasty and maybe keeper leagues, he's a guy to keep an eye on. But regular season redraft leagues, no way, even though he did play 23 minutes here. Montrezl Harrell, he had a good game in this one. 20 minutes of play, 16 points, 9 boards. And these are the type of numbers Harrell puts up, even though the last few games his scoring has gone down. He was only getting 9 or 8 points a game, but in this one he bounced back from 7-11 from the field with the 16 points. He was the sixth man of the year for a reason, and he's going to have a good role on this Laker team, and he's going to have pretty good fantasy value this whole season. Markieff Morris, he didn't do anything. Caruso, McKinney, Dudley, these guys don't play. And Caldwell Pope out with the ankle sprain. We'll see when he comes back. But honestly, I don't think he has fantasy value anyway. Is Caldwell Pope. Now to the Memphis side of things, Brandon Clark, another start in this one. 28 minutes, 8 points, 7 boards, 4 or 10 from the field. Clark, he's been up and down so far this season, but he's still playing major minutes. He's starting for this Grizzly team, and I think he's worth the roster spot in most fantasy leagues, unless you're in a shallow 10-team or 8-team league, but deep 12-team plus leagues, he's worth the roster spot, and he'll have some good nights and bad nights along the way. Kyle Anderson, another big ball game here for this guy, and he had a whopping 19 shot attempts. He only hit 7 of them, but he finished the night with 18 points, 4 boards, 2 assists, and he's getting every opportunity right now for this Grizzly team as one of the lead guys on this roster, especially with Ja Morant out and Jaren Jackson still not playing a game yet with his injury this season. So Kyle Anderson, if you were lucky enough to pick him up and get him last week in your leagues, it was a great ad because he's having value, he's scoring points, and he's been pretty solid this year in the rebounding category as well, even though in this one he only had 4. Tyus Jones, he was a recommended guard pickup on the waiver wire this week, and he's been doing pretty decent. In this one, 14 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, 6 for 11 from the field, and he added 2 threes in 5 attempts. So Jones, he's going to be the starter with Bane being the backup. With Ja Morant out with that bad ankle injury, 3 to 5 weeks. Luckily, it wasn't for the season for Morant the way it looked, and he got wheeled off in a wheelchair. So Jones and Baines, they're worth the roster spot. The first priority out of those guys, though, in fantasies, Tyus Jones, with Bane being a deeper league ad. But Jones, he could have assists, he could score the basketball, and I think he's a decent ad for your roster. Dylan Brooks, another mediocre game here. 9 points, 5 boards, 5 assists, 3 for 15 from the field, and that definitely hurts that field goal percentage, especially on a Sunday in a head-to-head league where you're trying to win that category, but a game like this doesn't help. But Brooks, he's been pretty solid so far this season, and just like Clark, he's going to have up and downs, but he's going to play major minutes in a team that's probably going to be rebuilding this season, especially with their 2 main guys hurt already. Joel Valanciunas, he's a walking double-double, like I said. And in this one, 14 points, 10 boards, and 7 for 14 from the field. And Valanciunas, the only question with him since his Toronto days to now has been health. And if he stays healthy, he's one of the better centers in fantasy basketball. And he's going to keep putting up numbers like this. Bane, good ball game in this one. He's more of a deeper league ad. 13 points, 1 rebound, 2 assists, 3 threes out of 4 attempts, and 5 for 8 from the field. So Bane, he's just a pure scorer. So if you need a combo guard who could score the basketball and hit a few threes, he's not a bad ad, and he's going to get anywhere from 20 to 25 minutes played a game. So I like Bane for deeper league formats. Gorgie Jang, he was a recommended center pickup this week in my waiver wire video, so check that one out as well. And Jang, he does a little bit of everything now. He's reinvented himself over the last few years, it seems like. He's starting to hit 3-pointers. He added another one in this one, and in 20 minutes of play, 5 points, 7 boards, 4 assists. Obviously, you want to see the points go up a little more in this one, but Jang, he's been scoring at a decent rate so far this season, and he's a guy I got in a couple leagues right now, and I'm going to hold on to him because he's the backup big man over here in Memphis. We know Morant and Jackson, they're not coming back time soon, most likely. So Zhang, I would ride it out with him and see what he could do. Tillman, Conker, and Grayson Allen, they don't really have fantasy value. And then Jaren Jackson and Ja Morant and Winslow, they're banged up, and who knows how long these guys are going to be out for. Morant, we know, probably a month, but the other guys, it's not known yet at this time for sure when they're coming back. So that was the Lakers and Memphis box score. The Wizards and Nets, what a game it was in this one, with the Wizards with a shocking victory, 123-122. So the Wizards, they started off the season here 0-5, but now winning 2 in a row with a shocking victory here, and Russell Westbrook versus Durant, the ultimate matchup of two former teammates, now two foes in this one. And what a game it was, but we'll go to the box score with this one. And the Wizards, Rui Hachimura, another decent game for him. 33 minutes of play, 15 points, 2 rebounds, 3 assists. So right now, Hachimura, he's getting back into playing shape, and he's playing pretty decent for this Wizard team. He had an eye infection, so he missed the first few games. But right here, 6 for 11 from the field, 3 for 4, 0 for 3 from 3. Denny Avdija, 16 minutes, 3 points, a board, and assist. And Avdija, he was a recommended add this week at the forward position. But in this game, it was just a down game for him. 1 for 4 from the field and 1 for 2 from 3. So Avdija, I think he's going to have good games and bad games. He's a rookie. It's his first year in the U.S. from overseas. So we'll see what he could do as the weeks go on. And he's a guy that's not going to be on the top of my priority list to add. Is Avdija, but I definitely would take him if you need the roster spot in deeper leagues or whatever. Russell Westbrook, he came back after not playing on back-to-backs, but this one, he wanted to win. Him and Durant are enemies for whatever reason or whatever the fallout was over there in OKC. But Westbrook, a huge game, 24 points, 5 rebounds, 10 assists. The only problem with Westbrook, he's not going to help in three-pointers, and turnovers and field goal percentage on most nights isn't going to be good. But Westbrook, 7 for 25 from the field. He did add a 3, and he hit some big shots down the stretch in this one to help the Wizards win. So Westbrook, almost every night it seems like, he's putting up a triple-double. And in this one, it was a nice double-double, though, still for Westbrook. And this is why he was valued, in my opinion, as a first-rounder going into drafts, with the usage being up instead of James Harden, obviously, being on his team, holding the ball more like last season. Bradley Beal, another big game for him. 27, 10 boards, 5 assists, 9 for 25 from the field, 7 and 9 from the line, 2 for 5 from 3. So Bradley Beal, he's a good player. He could score the basketball. He could get to the line. This game, I know the field goal percentage was off, but Beal, he could still get the job done. He was drafted 2nd or 3rd round of fantasy leagues. And this guy, the only problem with him over the years has been health. But hopefully he put back the injuries behind him, and he's just going to continue playing just about every game this season. Thomas Bryant, another huge game for the center here. 21 points, 14 boards, and 2 assists for Bryant on 9 of 12 shooting from the field, 2 for 2 from the foul line, and he added a 3 as well. So Bryant, he's getting back into form like he was a few seasons ago for this Washington Wizard team, and this is who you want to see. So if you got Bryant in the later rounds of your league drafts, and he's a steal right now with the numbers he's been putting up in the first couple weeks of the season. So I would maybe try to sell him high if the right deal's out there. If not, hold on to him. Davis Bertans, a good game here. 15 points, 6 boards, 4 for 10 from 3 in 30 minutes. Bertans, we know he's a stretch 4. The rebounds were good to see it go up to 6 because you don't really have many big rebound games. And in this one, he worked out perfectly for this Wizard team. He's going to hit threes. He's going to get chances to score the ball. But his numbers, I don't think, will be as good as last year with Russell Westbrook on this roster. Robin Lopez, decent game for him, but he still don't have fantasy value. 8 points, 5 boards, and assist in 20 minutes of play. Raul Neto, he don't really have value, only if Westbrook's going to miss a lot of time. But he played 14 minutes, 5 points, and an assist. James Robinson and Nish Smith, no value. So that's that for the Wizards box score. Now to the Nets, Kevin Durant. What a season so far for KD. He's back to form. And another huge game in this one versus the Washington Wizards, even though he missed a big shot down the stretch to try to help the Nets win the game. 28 points, though. 11 boards, 7 assists, 2 for 7 from 3, 8 for 15 overall from the field. So Durant, he's back to form, like I said. He's putting up the huge numbers like he did in the Thunder and with the Warriors. And I thought he would take some time to get him back into playing shape and back to the elite level that he was playing for fantasy owners. But Kevin Durant, he hasn't missed a beat. He's a total stud, and he's playing lights out right now for this net team, even though he missed a big shot at the end of the game. Joe Harris, you know what you're going to get from him. 10, 15 points a game. He'll hit a couple threes, and that's exactly what he did in this one. In 26 minutes of play, 16 points, 2 rebounds, 4 threes in this one. He's not going to help in many categories except threes, decent field goal, and scoring. Kyrie Irving, what a season it's been for him so far. And surprisingly, he's played in 6 out of the 7 net games this season, but I still would sell him high. I think the other shoe's going to drop, and for some reason, I don't think Irving, he's going to make it through most of the season this year, but he had 30 points, 10 assists, 5 boards, and he had a decent 50% shooting from the field, 10 for 20. So him and Durant right now, they've been a great combo with this net team. Even though they're 3 and 4, these guys are getting the job done for fantasy owners and the Nets, and that's for sure. So Lawan Karabat, he had a decent game, but I still don't buy into it for him. 14 points, 5 rebounds, and an assist here in 23 minutes of play. So Karabat, I don't think he'll be fantasy relevant. I know he's been starting since Dinwiddie went out for the season with the injury, but I still don't buy into him. Deandre Jordan, he was a center I recommended to drop this week, and another whatever game for him, 4 points, 5 boards in only 14 minutes. Jared Allen, he's the big over there in Brooklyn you want to own. And Jared Allen, he's going to play more as the season goes on. And right now we're seeing it in the box scores. Just more minutes for Allen off the bench and more production. And Allen in this one, 14 points, 11 rebounds, 8 of 9 from the line and 3 for 6 from the field. So Allen, he's the better big here to own in Brooklyn. DeAndre Jordan, I would drop, especially in shallow leagues, 8 to 10 team leagues, because he's not getting the job done and he's not putting up enough production to still be going at a roster spot. Karis Levert, this night he didn't do good again. 6 points, 5 boards, 5 assists, but bad 3-13 from the field. But he'll be all right, I think. There's going to be nights where he's going to be the main man when Durant and Irving both sit out like we saw last week, and he had a big 29-point game. So Levert, you just got to be patient with him, and you definitely got to hold on to him. And if the owner wants to get rid of him, I would try to trade for him. Shamit, Jeff Green, Taurean Prince, they didn't do much. And these guys, they don't really hold value, in my opinion, for fantasy. Now on to the Nuggets and Timberwolves ball game. We'll go to the box score here. The Nuggets win this one 124 to 109 versus the T-Wolves. And the T-Wolves and Nuggets now both 2 and 4 in this one. Now to the Nuggets box score. Paul Millsap, he started 25 minutes, 12 points, 4 boards, and an assist. And he had 4 threes in this one. So Millsap, he's not going to be the player he once was, obviously, in Utah, but he still could be fantasy relevant. He still could help out your fantasy team, and he still could do some decent things with 3-pointers, points, and rebounding. And this game was a mediocre game for Millsap, but he's a player I would try to have on my team, or keep at least, and I wouldn't drop him. Will Barton, on the other hand, I would drop him. He's getting the opportunity more now to play with Michael Porter Jr., who's been out, but Porter Jr., he's going to come back soon. And Will Barton in this one, 8 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, but only 3 for 11 shooting. And Barton over the last week, he just hasn't produced or gotten the job done. And Barton, he was a forward I said to drop this week off your fantasy team, because now with Porter coming back any day now, most likely, he's just not going to do much or help much, I believe, on your fantasy roster. But if you're in deep leagues, obviously you keep Barton and hope he turns it around. Jamal Murray, what a game for him. His best game of the season to date so far. 36 points, 5 boards, 4 assists, 13 from 20 from the field, 3 for 7 from 3. We know Murray, he's a streaky scorer, and we saw it a lot in the playoffs last season with those few 50-point games. When he gets going, this guy's hard to stop, and that's what happened in this game versus Minnesota, who barely plays defense anyway. And Jamal Murray, he's a stud. He was a player I had as my in the top 30 heading into the fantasy basketball drafts this season. And he had a couple slow starts this season, but in this game, these are the type of the games you drafted Murray for, these huge numbers, and I could expect more from him like this as the season goes on. Gary Harris, he has no fantasy value. I believe he's not 100% after that bad injury last season, and in this game, 24 minutes of nothing ball, 2 points, 2 rebounds, 1 for 8 from the field. So Harris, he shouldn't be owned at this time. a few seasons ago. He was good for the Nuggets and fantasy owners, but like I said, that injuries held him back and possibly taking his best years away from him here in the NBA. Nikola Jokic, another triple-double here. And the Joker, this guy's the best passing big man and possibly the best big man in basketball. Him or Anthony Davis, I would say. 19 points, 12 rebounds, 12 assists. And like I say every time about the Joker, he gives you assists like he's a extra point guard on your fantasy roster. And in this one, the only downfall for him, he only had 1 3-point attempt, 0 for 1 from 3, but everything else, he's a stud. He barely misses games as the Joker, and he's pretty much unguardable at the center position, and he was a huge first-round pick for fantasy owners this season. Monty Morris, another good game in this one, 28 minutes, 11 points, 3 rebounds, 6 assists, 3 for 7 from the field, 4 for 5 from the line, 1 for 3 from 3. So Morris, he's a scorer. He could shoot the basketball as well from 3. And he's a player I recommended this week to add on waivers at the guard position. And he's available in about 87% of fantasy leagues. So Monty Morris, if he's out there in deep leagues especially, I would go out there and get him because he's playing a pretty major role off the bench for this team. And he's worth a look. JaMychal Green, last season, he had some flashes with the Los Angeles Clippers, and in this one, he had a good game here. 14 points, 5 boards, 3 assists, but I think he got bigger minutes because Michael Porter's been out the last few games, but if Porter comes back, I think Green and Barton, he's going to play into their playing time because Porter, he's a player that's going to play 30, 35 minutes starting or coming off the bench. It don't matter. So Green, he don't really have value. PJ Dozier and Campazzo, good games in this one, but I don't think they're going to play consistent enough to have value as well. So that was the Denver box score. Now on to Minnesota. Juan Hernangomez, he got the start in this one, but he has no fantasy value. He's been in and out of the rotation so far this season. 6 points, 5 boards, 2 assists, 3 of 10 shooting from the field. So if he starts playing major minutes and starting, maybe, but right now, Hernangomez ain't worth the ad. Jared Culver, good game in this one. 20 points, 6 boards, 8 of 13 from the field, and he added a 3. Culver, he's on the brink of being a major ad, but he's been inconsistent as well. But maybe this is the season Culver gets minutes and he plays well, and he'll be a good player for Minnesota and fantasy owners. D'Angelo Russell, pretty good game in this one. 18 points, 4 boards, 7 assists, 7 of 15 from the field. Then he added 4 threes. Russell, I've been waiting for him to have that huge game, and so far this season, he really hasn't had it. But now this Minnesota team, they're going to be down in a lot of games. And Russell, he's the type of player, when he gets hot, he heats checks, and he could go off for 40, 50 points on any given night. But so far in Minnesota this season, the whole team struggled, and no one's really had huge games. Beasley in this one, a good game for him though. Malik Beasley, 25 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, 10 of 16 from the field, 3 of 5 from 3. So Beasley, they gave him a big contract this offseason for a reason. He's showing up and he's showing in with some good play, and he's had a good few games this season. He was picked up a lot last week on the waiver wire was Malik Beasley, and they're not going to pay him to sit on the bench, and he played a crazy 38 minutes in this one. So he's definitely an ad if he's out there somehow in your league, and he's going to play a lot this season. Ed Davis, he started surprisingly over Naz Reid in this one, and Davis had a mediocre line. 5 points, 8 rebounds, 1 for 4 from the field, 3 for 4 from 3. But Ed Davis, he's not worth an ad. He's a veteran. He's been around. But in this game, I think Minnesota were changing things up. And obviously, that just didn't work out. Anyway, losing by 15 in this one. Naz Reid, he is a pickup here. And he's going to be a good fill-in for Karl Anthony Towns till he comes back. And another pretty decent game for him. 13 points, 4 rebounds, 6 for 9 shooting. And Reid, he's available in 75% of fantasy leagues, and I recommended to add him on waivers this week. So if he's out there, go add him. Ed Davis starting doesn't mean anything to me. I think Reid's going to be the guy that's going to play the major minutes at center until Towns comes back, so he's the ad there. Anthony Edwards, the first pick overall in the NBA draft, he's going to have growing pains in up and down games, and in this one it was a downer. 22 minutes, only 5 points, 4 rebounds, 2 for 4 shooting, 1 for 3 from 3. Edwards, though, he's worth the roster spot. He's going to play as a 6th, 7th man off the bench from Minnesota, and if this team's going to be out of it early in the season, they're going to bump his minutes up even more because you're not going to spend a first-round pick overall in a draft on a guy and not play him. Layman, he don't have value. Ricky Rubio, he's a guy I recommended to drop this week. Rubio, the numbers are way down. The field goal percentage is horrible. The assist, he's not getting. And for whatever reason, he's not gelling with this team. And the thing is, they got too many ball handlers, I believe, is why. Russell needs the ball in his hands. Malik Beasley, too. He's a player that creates his own shot, and he passes the ball, too. So they pretty much got 3 point guards here on this roster who are going to play major minutes. And right now, Ricky Rubio, he's just not fitting in with Russell and Beasley. And at this time, he's going to be dropped. So that was the Denver and Minnesota box score from the Jazz and the Spurs. The Jazz win this one in a blowout, 130-109 here. So Utah improves to 4-2, and the Spurs fall to 2-4 in this ball game. Now we'll go to the Jazz box score. Royce O'Neal, a good game in this one, and he's been getting the starter minutes and starting pretty much the whole season here for Utah. 11 points, 11 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 of 4 from the field, and 3 threes. So Royce O'Neal, he's a player to keep an eye on, but right now I wouldn't rush to the waiver wire and get him. I got to see more consistency out of him in the next few games. But Donovic in this one, 28 points, 1 rebound, 3 assists. So he's back on track after struggling for a few games. 10 for 13 shooting, 6 for 7 from 3. And when this guy gets hot from 3-point, he's going to have major games like this. And that's why you got him in your fantasy leagues. 10th, 11th rounders, Bogdanovic, for his scoring ability and 3-point shooting. Because he's not going to give you much in any other category. But with those stats, that's what he's going to do. And that's what he did tonight. Mike Conley Jr., after coming off a huge game, he still had a decent game in this one, though. 26 minutes, 15 points, 4 assists, 6 for 11 from the field, 3 for 6 from 3. So Mike Conley, he was a player that went late in most fantasy drafts from what I saw. And so far, people who got him late in drafts, he's paying dividends. And he's playing well for this Utah team. And the only thing with Conley is health. Because when this guy plays, he's still productive. He could put up numbers. Obviously, he's not going to be a beast like he was in Memphis, where he still could be productive and play good basketball. And that's what he's been doing so far here for the Utah Jazz and fantasy owners. Donovan Mitchell, another mediocre game for him. So far, he didn't have that amazing breakout game, but he's still scoring about 20, 22 points a game. His field goal percentage is the problem right now, but he had 22 points, 4 rebounds, and 9 assists in 28 minutes here. 8 for 17 from the field and 5 for 9 from 3. So Mitchell, I'm not worried about him. I think he'll get better as the games go on, and then this was a good game for him in terms of assisting and hitting threes. So just the scoring has to go up just a bit. Rudy Goldberg, another good game here. 7 points, 16 rebounds, and an assist. 2 for 7 from the field, 3 for 6 from the line. So Goldberg getting a lot of hate from Shaquille O'Neal, I saw on Instagram this week. And O'Neal, he's pissed that Goldberg got a huge contract like that. When O'Neal, he was putting up crazy double-doubles, and Goldberg barely averaging 10 points a game. But anyway, Goldberg, he's playing well. He fits in with this team, and times have changed right now. And Goldberg, he's one of the better defensive centers in the NBA, winning Defensive Player of the Year a few years ago. And Goldberg, another good game here. He's putting up that 3rd, 4th round value like people drafted him in. So he's been good. Jordan Clarkson, he's a recommended pickup this week at the guard position, and he had a good game in this one off the bench, obviously. He's the 6th man for this Jazz team. 18 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, 8 for 13 from the field. Also added 2 threes. So Clarkson, the only reason he'll be on rosters is to help out in scoring, and some nights he'll have a decent assist rate. But he's going to be a pure scorer. He's going to be a 3-point shooter, and he's pretty decent for this Utah team. And if something did happen to Conley, where he's out a few games or whatever, Clarkson's minutes and value will go up. But I recommend him as a pickup this week. Joe Ingles, a decent game off the bench. he's a gadget guy, and he does a little bit of everything, is Ingles. And in this one, in 20 minutes of work, 13 points, 7 boards, an assist, and 2 threes. So Ingles, he's a pretty solid player. He got dropped earlier in the season in week 1 to early week 2 because he just wasn't playing enough or being productive for fantasy owners. But now in the last 2 or 3 games, he's been pretty good right now, is Joel Ingles. And we'll see what he could do. So right now, Joel Ingles, I would keep him on the fantasy roster, and he could do things. Now to the Spurs side of things, DeMar DeRozan, another pretty solid game. 19 points, 5 boards, 4 assists, 9 of 17 shooting for DeRozan. This year, he's added a little more to his game in the passing categories, and he's been rebounding decent. But the three-pointers is still the problem. But everything else, DeRozan's been pretty good. And he's playing for a contract as well next season. So DeMar DeRozan, he surprised me. He's playing good. And hopefully he keeps it up. Kelden Johnson, if you picked him up last week or in week 1 of fantasy, good for you. Because this guy's going to keep producing. He's going to keep playing. And a big game again here for him. 22 points, 7 boards, 2 dimes. 10 for 16 from the field. So Johnson, he fits in perfect at the small forward position here for San Antonio. And who knows, he might be the next up-and-coming star here in San Antonio. But this season, he's putting up numbers. He's playing well. And obviously, Popovich likes him a lot here. Jamal Murray, just an off game for him last night. A putrid one, though. 1 for 13 from the field. So that definitely killed your field goal percentage in head-to-head matchups on a Sunday. And 4 points, 3 boards, 5 assists, but it's one down game for Murray. I think he'll bounce back. He's a solid player, and he's had good performances so far this year. Lonnie Walker, another start in this one, but his minutes have gone down a little here in the last few games. But Derrick White, he was out again in this one. So Walker, I wouldn't drop him yet. I would keep him. We even pick him up if things pick up again for him. 11 points, 2 rebounds, 4 for 11 from the field, 1 for 2 from 3. So Walker, he's a pretty solid player. He's a guy the Spurs have been high on now a few seasons since they drafted him, and he's getting opportunities, and he's playing pretty decent. Poultry, he's a guy not on the fantasy radar. I know he's starting and all, but this game he did have a good game. 11 points, 7 boards, 4 assists, 5 for 8 from the field, but I still got to see more out of him to give him a roster spot. Rudy Gay, I recommended him as a pickup this week at the forward position. And Gay, he did a little bit of everything this game. 10 points, 3 boards, 2 assists. He added 2 threes, and he was 40% from the field. So Gay, he's going to play 20, 25 minutes. He's a veteran. He's still a player that could score the basketball in amounts, and I think that's what he's going to do for this Spur team. So he's a guy I would try to pick up in mostly deeper leagues, but he still could help even in 12-team leagues. Vessel, Patty Mills, Lyles, and Ebanks, these guys just don't have fantasy value at this time. We'll see if their minutes go up as the year goes on, but right now, I'm not paying attention to those players. Derrick White, he came back the other night, but once again, they sat him in this one, and he's probably not 100%. He came back earlier than what his timetable was. So White with the toe sprain, they're taking it easy. We'll see if he comes back in the next game. And Lamarcus Aldridge, the same thing with a left knee soreness. Aldridge, he was a guy I was a little skeptical about this season because of his age and the wear and tear on his body. And so far, Aldridge, he just hasn't played many games, but when he does play, he's pretty productive. So hopefully he comes back soon as well. Now on to the LA Clippers and the Phoenix Suns, and what a game this was, a back-and-forth battle. And this actually was for first place in the Western Conference, even though I know it's only the 7th game of the season. But the Clippers win this one 112-107, and they go to 5-2, and Phoenix falls to 5-2. Now to the Clippers box score. Nicholas Batum, he's got fantasy value, and I said again this week to pick him up like I did last in the waiver wire video for forwards, and he had a good game here. 14 points, a rebound, 3 assists, and he added 4 threes. So Batum, I know Marcus Morris, he's been out the whole season, but Batum, he's been playing major minutes, even with Leonard and George playing as well. So Batum, when Morris comes back, I still think 20, 25 minutes is doable for him. He's got value. He gives you a little bit of everything in fantasy, and he's even hitting threes this season. So Nicholas Batum is a nice pickup and a player you should get, and he's available in about 80% of fantasy leagues. Kawhi Leonard had a bad game from the field, 4 for 21, and he had a 15.6 board, 3 assist game. But Leonard, it's an off game for him. The Clippers still won, and it's good to see Leonard playing more games than sitting so far in the season, especially if you got him in fantasy leagues in your second, third round. You want this guy to play and not be on a time restriction or have DNPs or load management. So hopefully Leonard, he could play most of the season here, and this was just a down game. Pat Beverly had one of his better games this season here, 27 minutes of play, 7 points, 9 boards. But Beverly, he don't really have fantasy value. He's a player that could stay on the waiver wire because I just don't see him being consistent and having huge stat lines. Paul George, he broke out in this one with a monster ball game, 15 for 24 from the field, 39 points, 3 rebounds, 4 assists, 7 for 10 from 3. So Paul George, he's having a great season so far with one poor game in there. And PG-13 this offseason, he worked hard. He got with the trainers. He changed his approach to the ball game. And I think those injuries have healed as well with his knee and his shoulder injury. So Paul George, he's been a total stud so far in the early going and a huge ball game in this one. And he's trying to shut up the haters this season is PG-13. Serge Ibaka, not a great game for him, but he's going to play 25, 30 minutes a game. It's a middle-of-the-road game, 8.7 boards, but Ibaka, he's a player I want on my roster. He could do a little bit of everything. He'll score, he could rebound, hit threes, and block shots, and he's good for a powered forward and center in fantasy. Luke Kennard, he had a decent game, but he's still not consistent enough to be on rosters. 14 points, 4 boards, and assists. Zubac, he's a player I've been looking at, but once again, he's been up and down as well. 4 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists. So right now, Zubac, you keep him on your watch list, but you don't pick him up at this time. And Lou Williams, I'm giving him one more week before I tell owners to drop him. And another bad game for the former 6-man of the year here. 21 minutes with no impact, 4 points, a rebound, and 2 assists. So I don't know what it is with Williams. Maybe with the new coach and Tyronn Lue, things have changed up, or he's just trying to get his way out of town. I don't know, but Lou Williams, he's been horrible so far in fantasy. Now to the Sun side of things, Jay Crowder, he's an up-and-down player. He's playing major minutes for this Sun team, but he's just not being productive enough to be owned in fantasy. 6 points, 2 boards, 2 assists, 2 for 6 from 3. So Crowder, I probably would keep him on the wire until we see more consistency out of him. Mikhail Bridges, 7 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 for 5 from 3. And Bridges, he's a player I said to sell high last week in fantasy basketball, is Bridges. So right here, I don't know what he's going to do. I don't think he's going to be great, and I would sell him high if I could before this happened. But now he's got to build his value up. 1 for 7 from the field's not going to cut it. He's still playing the major minutes, like I said, but still, I don't trust Bridges. Chris Paul, another solid game for CP3. 35 minutes, 15 points, 9 boards, 6 assists. Paul, he was drafted second or third round of many fantasy drafts, and he's living up to that hype right now. The only thing with Paul, is he going to be on management towards the end of the year if you're trying to make the playoffs so you're in it, or is he going to get hurt? So hopefully Paul stays healthy and he plays well for this Phoenix team. Devin Booker, 25 points, 5 boards, 8 assists. Booker, he's been scoring good this season, but he just hasn't had that huge game, 35, 40 points, but he'll get a couple of those this season. 7 for 13 from the field, 1 for 3 from 3. I would like to see his threes made go up as the weeks go on, but Booker, he's a stud. He was drafted second round of most drafts, and he's still putting up good numbers. DeAndre Ayton, the last few games, he's come back to his value, which he's playing well. 24 points, 8 boards, 2 assists, 9 for 12 from the field. Ayton, he was a center, I said last week, to buy low, but right now that window might have shut with him having back-to-back good ball games. And Ayton, he was a second, third rounder for a reason. Cam Johnson, he was a recommended pickup this week, so check that out at the forward position. 8 points, 3 rebounds, and assist. 3 for 9 from the field, but he added 2 threes. So Johnson, he gives a little bit of everything in the box score. Just his scoring and field goal got to go up. If his field goal could go up, his scoring's obviously going to go up. But Johnson's a young player. They're high on him over there in Phoenix. He's the sixth man right now, and he's a guy I recommend to pick up is Johnson, because I think he could break out very soon, and you don't want to miss out on that. Dario Saric, good game for him, but I don't think he plays enough to have value. 15 points, 4 boards in 17 minutes with 2 threes. If Saric could get more minutes and play, I think then it'll be worth the roster spot. And Galloway and Carter, no value. So that was the Clippers and the Suns box score for fantasy. Now to the Dallas Mavs and the Chicago Bulls in this one, with the Mavs taking a bad loss in this one. So the Bulls, they've won 3 in a row now, and they're riding high, 118-108 in this ball game. Now we'll go to the Mavs box score. Tim Hardaway Jr., he started a powered forward, surprisingly, in this one, and he had 13 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, but 4 for 15 from the field and 2 for 13 from the field. Hardaway Jr., you know, he's really just a scorer and a three-point shooter, but this one, he hurt your field goal percentage. He went 2 for 12 from 3, and him starting at powered forward's a real small ball lineup here for the Dallas Mavericks. Hardaway, he's still worth the roster spot. He could score, but he's not going to help you in many other categories in fantasy. Finney-Smith, he don't really have fantasy value. He started again in this one, though. 35 minutes of play, 5.6 rebounds and an assist, 2 for 5 from the field. So Finney-Smith, he's going to play, but he's just not doing enough to garner interest or a roster spot on fantasy teams. Jalen Brunson, he had a breakout performance here, and he's a guy I recommended to add on the fantasy waiver wire this week. 31 points, 5 boards, 7 assists, 11 for 17 from the field, 3 for 7 from 3. But the reason he had a good game in this one was obviously Luka Doncic was out in this with a left quadricep injury and the contusion. So if he's only out 2 or 3 games, Brunson's value is going to be limited and only a couple days. But right now, if I'm a Doncic owner, I would go out there and get Brunson until Doncic comes back, hopefully at 100%. Richardson, another good game in this one. 16 points, 4 boards, 2 assists, 3 for 7 from 3, 5 for 14 from the field. So Josh Richardson, he's similar to Tim Hardaway in the way where he's only going to score the basketball and hit threes as his main part of his fantasy value, but he's still worth the roster spot, obviously. He's been playing major minutes since the trade with Philly and Seth Curry. So Josh Richardson, he's been decent. Dwight Powell has started center here, but he didn't do anything, and I've been saying this a few times in these box score reviews. Maxi Kleber is the big man you want over there in Dallas until Kristaps Porzingis comes back. And for Powell, 20 minutes, 4 points, 4 boards, 4 assists, 1 for 4 from the field, and he just hasn't had a good year. But Maxi Kleber, a pretty solid game in this one. 28 minutes of work as the 6-man, 16 points, 5 boards, and an assist. And he added 3 for 6 from 3. So Kleber, you should have him on your roster for sure until Porzingis comes back, if he ever does. Who knows with him. Trey Burke, another 17-minute game. He didn't do much, though. 7 points in 17 minutes, 2 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 for 9 from the field, and 0 for 3 from 3. So this game showing that Luka Doncic was out and Burke still didn't do anything tells me he's not going to have fantasy value pretty much the whole season. Brunson will be the guy to get if Doncic misses an extended amount of time. Willie Cauley-Stein, he don't do too much, but he had a mediocre game in 11 minutes, 8 points, 4 boards. And Boban, 7 minutes, 6 points, 6 boards in this one. But these guys, they don't really have an impact in fantasy or for the Mavs. Now on to the Bulls side of things. Otto Porter Jr., 28 minutes, 15 points, 7 boards, 2 assists, 4 for 11 from the field, and 2 threes. So Otto Porto, he's been pretty decent so far in the fantasy season, but he's been an inconsistent player as well. So he'll have good games, and then he'll have some bad games as Otto Porter. And in this one, it was the middle of the pack game. He was a player drafted most likely in the 9th or 10th round of fantasy leagues, and so far he's played a little better of where he went in fantasy drafts. Patrick Williams, the rookie, I recommended him as a pickup last week in week 2 at the forward position, and this one, 6 points, 5 boards, and an assist in 28 minutes. So Williams, he's going to get every opportunity to play. He was a top pick here for the Chicago Bulls. I believe it was the 6th or 7th pick overall they took him. And right now they get invested a lot in him, obviously. And he's going to get opportunities in this rebuilding mode that the Bulls have been in now the last few seasons. Kobe White, another guy, he's going to have monster games and he's going to have bad games. And in this one, it was a good one for him. 23 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, 7 of 14 from the field, 4 for 9 from 3. So Kobe White, he's a guy that I said to buy low last week, and right now that window might be closing on him. He's starting to score the basketball more. His field goal percentage is starting to be more efficient, and his 3 points made per game are going up as well. And White, just like Patrick Williams, they invested a decently high pick on him in the 2019 NBA draft. And White, he's got the keys to the starting point guard position, with Stanovsky not being a factor and Kevin Dunn leaving as well in free agency. Zach LaVine, we know he's the alpha over here in Chicago and the main man and main scorer, and he had a monster ball game last night with a 39 point, 6 rebound, 5 assist game, 14 of 25 from the field, 3 for 9 from 3. So LaVine, he's going to have huge nights like he did in this one, where he goes ballistic in the scoring category. And LaVine, he was taken 2nd or 3rd round of fantasy drafts. And so far this season, he's had another bounce back performance like last year, putting up big numbers and scoring the ball. Wendell Carter Jr., he's been pretty decent this year. And he was a guy I wasn't high on the fantasy season, because nights like this, and he only played 22 minutes though, 7 points, 7 rebounds, 2 for 8 from the field, 0 for 1 from 3. So Wendell Carter, we'll see what he could do as the weeks and the season goes on. But if I could get rid of him as an add-on in a trade package or just a 1-for-1 deal, I would, because he's inconsistent in my opinion. And just like you saw here, he got in foul trouble a little, and his minutes were low. Thaddeus Young, 28 minutes, but no impact really. 7 points, 4 boards, and he added a 3 though. But Thaddeus Young, he's a player to keep an eye on, but right now it's not the time to go pick him up on the waiver wire. Gary Temple, 25 minutes, empty stats pretty much. Gafford, he's been playing decent. 12 points, 3 boards in 19 minutes, but he's not on the radar yet. And Lauri Markkanen, he's on that COVID safety protocol list now. And Markkanen, it just seems like the last 2 seasons now, things have gotten his way. Injury, him and the coach clashing, or whatever the deal is. But Lauri Markkanen, if he's out there, if he got dropped in your fantasy leagues, I would take a flyer on him and hope he bounces back to form like he was a few seasons ago. And now the last ball game of the night, the Golden State Warriors in the Trailblazers. What a game this was. High-scoring game, obviously. The Warriors dropped 137 to 122 with the victory. And Steph Curry, he was the headliner with 62 points and a magical night for him. We'll get to him in a few minutes, but we'll start with the Portland Trailblazer box score. Robert Covington, another bad game for him. 6 points, 2 rebounds, and an assist, but he did hit both of his 3-point attempts. Robert Covington, he's a player I said to buy low last week, and he's probably going to be in my buy low videos this week at the forward position. He's too talented of a player. He's going to get more shot attempts, I think, even though this season he's with Lillard and McCollum. We're going to take a lot of shots, obviously, but last year he played with Westbrook and Harden half a season, and he was fine. So I think Covington, he'll break out of the slump, and he'll do a little bit of everything like he did last season with Houston. Derrick Jones Jr., a start here, but he only played 16 minutes, and he didn't do much. And he's a guy, said he was a good real-life signing, but for fantasy, he's not going to be a factor. And in this one, 16 minutes, 3 points, and a rebound. Damian Lillard, once again, another good game for him. Just the shooting percentage was down in this one. He shot under 40%, 32 points though, 4 boards, 4 assists, 6 for 15 from 3. And that's where he's valuable, scoring the ball, getting assists, even though on this night he only had 4. But he did hit 6 threes, which is a big number for fantasy owners. And Lillard, he's living up to that first round draft pick in fantasy this year. CJ McCollum, another good game for him as well. 28 points, 9 boards, 5 assists, 10 for 23 from the field, and 2 threes. And McCollum, this is what he does. He's a pure scorer. He's added some rebounding to his game this season, and he could pass the basketball with 3 or 4 assists a game as well. So McCollum's a stud. He don't miss many games, and once again, he's off to a great start this season. Jusuf Nurkic, he was a player I said to sell high last week, and he's had mediocre lines all week now. 7.6 rebounds, 3 assists, and 3 for 10 from the field for Nurkic. Nurkic, he's a player that I said I would sell high because the numbers have been inconsistent and he's not having great of games. And once again, you saw it again here in week 2 and this one. So if I could add him on as a filler in a trade or trade him a 1-for-1 where I think I'm getting a better player, I would do it because Nurkic right now, his numbers have gone down and maybe he's not 100% from the injury. Gary Trent Jr., he came back in this one after he exploded early on last week versus the Los Angeles Lakers with a 28-point game off the bench. And in this one, he did play big minutes, 31 minutes, 7 points, 2 boards, and an assist. 1 for 6 from 3. Trent, he'll be fine. He's got to get back into shape a little, maybe. Missing a week of games almost. But he's a good player, and he's a recommended pickup if he picks it up once again. Carmelo Anthony, he was on the forward pickup list here for week 3 on waivers. And a decent game for him. 10 points, 3 boards, 2 for 8 from the field, which was the problem. But Melo, you know he's going to score. He could add threes, and he could also rebound pretty decent still at his older age at 36. So Carmelo Anthony, he's like their 6th man, him and Trent off the bench, and he's there to score, and I think he can help fantasy teams. And I said to pick him up this week, and I stick by it. Enes Kanter, he was another pickup this week at center, so check the center waiver wire video out. And a good game for Kanter here, 24 and 12. And like I said, Kanter, he's a better fantasy player than a real-life player. He puts up double-doubles. He's got a good field goal percentage, and he plays hard on the offensive end. The knock on Kanter, why he bounced around the NBA a lot the last few seasons, is his defense against the pick and roll and big men dominating him down low. But Kanter, on the offensive side of things and for fantasy, he puts up numbers with double-doubles and huge games along the way, like he did here with 24 and 12. And Anthony Simmons, he don't have value, but he had 12 minutes of play. And in this one, Zach Collins, he's out with the ankle fracture. And Rodney Hood, he just can't stay healthy the last few seasons with a quad strain. Now to the Golden State Warriors. And Steph Curry, he was the man on this night with a huge ball game. 62 points. And Steph, he caught fire in this one. 18 for 19 from foul line, that is. 18 for 31 from the field and 8 for 16 from 3. So Curry, he's one of the most unguardable players in the NBA with the way he could get to the line, obviously shoot the ball from anywhere on the court, and the way he gets his teammates involved as well. Curry, he was a top 5 pick for a reason. I got him in 2 leagues, which I'm happy about. And having big games like this ain't surprising. Even though Curry, he's up there in age at 32 and Klay Thompson is out for this season, Curry's a stud. He's putting up numbers. He's one of the best shooters or the best shooter of all time already. And Steph, he's going to have huge games along the way this season like this. But I don't know about 60 every time. But in this one, I thought he was going to go for 70 or 80 possibly, the way he started off with 20 points in the first quarter. So Steph did his job, and he led the Warriors to a big win. Draymond Green, second game back. He just don't have it, I believe, for fantasy. 1 point, 3 boards, and the 8 assists with the only plus for Green. Green can't shoot the jump shot. He's getting older in age. He's declining, and he's getting slower as well. And he's had the injury bug now the last year and a half is Draymond Green. So he's a player I can't trust for fantasy. And he's more of just a defensive guy here for the Warriors. Andrew Wiggins, it was nice to see him shoot well from the field at 50%. He added 21 points, 7 boards, 2 assists. And Wiggins, you know he's a pure scorer. Maybe he's got to get back into the thick of things, fitting into this system. Because last season, he didn't play with Curry. Curry was out most of the year. And Wiggins, they got him at the deadline when Curry was out already. So him and Curry, maybe they're ironing things out. And he's trying to fit into that Golden State system. But I think Wiggins will be fine as the season goes on. Kelly Oubre, he had a good game for once here. Another guy they got to fit into the system. And he's Klay Thompson's replacement. But a decent game here. 17 points, 5 boards, 7 of 13 from field goal. And if he was dropped for whatever reason in your fantasy leagues, I would still go out there and take a flyer on Kelly Oubre. This guy could play. Last season, he had a big year with Phoenix. And this year, I think he'll get it going as the more games they play is Golden State. Because remember, training camp was limited. Oubre, he just got to get out of his shooting slump. And good shooters, they go on streaks. And right now, he's on a bad streak. But once he gets hot, Oubre's going to have big games. James Wiseman, another double-double for the impressive rookie here. 12 points, 11 boards, 6 for 9 from the field. So Wiseman, he's going to be a putback guy. He's going to get a lot of rebounds. He's going to block shots. And he's a good center to have on your roster. And he was a player drafted in the 10th, 11th round of most fantasy leagues. And he's paying off with higher value than where he got taken so far. Kent Bazemore, decent game, 6 points, 8 boards, 2 assists. But these guys on this Golden State bench, they need some injuries to happen, which hopefully don't happen at all here to have fantasy basketball value. Because we saw Pascal last year have value and Damian Lee. But right now, these guys are only playing 15, 17 minutes a game, so they're not going to have value. And Kevin Looney as well, only 17 minutes, 2 points, 5 boards. So that was the recap of the Portland Trailblazers and the Golden State Warriors and the recap of the fantasy games here on January 3rd. And I'll be back with the recap tomorrow of the January 4th ball games.